Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 71 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here in Jacob, this is my cousin Jacob, and where are we?
We are in Phuket, Thailand.
In
Back of taxi driver.
So we are actually on our way to the airport. I'm going back to Chiang Mai, and Jacob is flying back to the U.S., where he lives in Los Angeles and works as a realtor. But this story actually began 7 years ago now, in 2008, in this same airport when we flew here from Phuket. So do you remember that?
Yes, very clearly. It was a trip quite unforgivable.
And that was only supposed to be that short 3-week vacation. What was our lives like that? Like, what was I like back then, if you could remember?
Back then, you were very energetic. You were very enthusiastic about everything that you see. Very open-minded and just pretty much all-around person.
And I think I was so happy because I was just a tourist mode. I was like, let me check out this place and see if I like it or not. And I was gonna go back to my normal life back in LA. And did you expect me to stay? Did anyone expect me to stay?
No, not me, not my other cousin. No.
And how do you think my family or the family reacted to that?
I mean, I didn't know at the time, but obviously they probably won't be too happy about your staying here after you only came here one time.
So I actually kind of stopped listening to everyone back home because everyone had, worries or doubts, or every time I would talk to them, they would put fears in me. They're like, well, what are you going to do about retirement now that you don't have a 401k? Or what are you going to do about your career? Can you go back to your job? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? And it was all things that it was honestly a bit overwhelming because I didn't think 10 years ahead. I was only thinking, what am I going to do next month? All I knew was I was stressed back in LA and I wanted something new, something different. And remember that first time we went diving? Tell me about that experience.
It was pretty different, as we have never done that before, and we don't really have the environment back in California to enjoy such a sport. So the first time when we dived together, that was quite an experience, as in it's new, and just that the fact that we're underwater, there's so much to see, and there's another world down in the ocean that we never ever get close to discover, and once we see what's really diving's all about, and that kind of opens another channel for us to explore.
And what's crazy, and it never really hit me until now, is how much time has passed because I stayed and I just kept diving. And Jacob went back to his normal life, and he went back to work. He did change careers, but, pretty much, went back to his normal life and only went diving on vacation once more after that. And it was so weird because we were diving here. We went to Koh Phi Phi for 5 days, and we'll talk about that in a second because it was such a good trip. And I realized I've now been diving over 800 times. And as a normal tourist, who only comes once every few years, Jacob had only been diving 10 times or less. And it was such a weird experience because we had done our first dives together. It's almost like imagine two people learning to walk at the same time, and all of a sudden, one person had, now can run 80, these ultra marathons, and another person is still learning to crawl because they haven't really practiced, walking for that many years. Like, well, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's I would say that if I had really had a chance to stay and keep going and then start doing more divings, I would. It's just that realistic. It's not really possible for me. I do have other lives back in States, and I mean, I love diving. Don't get me wrong. Just that I don't know if it's worth me staying here and doing what Johnny does. So,
What do you think were some of the gambles or the worries or concerns that that were valid? There was a lot of things that I risked coming out here. What do you think were some of the things that people worried about back home when I decided to move out here?
well, one of the reasons we're worried is because, well, at least I was worried at that time, is that it was kind of impulse decision. And I didn't know how serious you were at that time. It was just kind of like a spur of the moment thinking that you all of a sudden discover something that you like, which is great. However, you still can't just leave everything behind and then quit your job, get rid of your apartment and things like that. There's a lot of things that goes behind. Simply because you want to do something else rather than stay in your current life. So at that time, there was the worry because the impulse decision that you had.
And you know what? Those I would say definitely it was impulsive. But honestly, if it wasn't impulsive, if I actually went back and thought about it and looked at all the downsides, looked at all the fears, and I never would have came. I would have, if it wasn't for me saying, okay, F it, 100%, I'm doing it, I'm committing to it. If it wasn't for that, too many things would have come up. I would say, and I'm not unique, I would say everyone has responsibilities, everyone's life, there's things that come up, and everyone has reasons, and a lot of them are valid reasons. It's like, by me coming out here, I sacrificed a lot, and I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time for the first couple of years trying to figure things out, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but for me, it paid off and it was worth it because I'm happy. I got to see a lot of things, a lot of cool stuff. Maybe it's not for everyone. If they're not willing to take that risk and that gamble, maybe it's not worth it. Or maybe if if you are working on a career that you're very happy with back home and you want, and it's not location dependent. Let's say for example, as a real estate agent, it's very hard or if not impossible just to be like, okay, well, I'm moving to another country and I'm gonna leave all my clients home and the brand and the reputation I built up. But for me, it was worth it. And do you remember kind of specifically what I said when I decided, or how I made that decision and what I said to you?
I remember we're on a boat. I think there's all three of us, and it was the day to remember because on that boat, there's three of us, and somehow all three of us cousins are going to the front of the boat. So the boat is going fast, and then we're just talking and enjoying the sunlights and enjoying the scenery, watching the oceans, and Johnny all of a sudden have this idea. He turned around, he says, "Hey cuz, I've decided I'm gonna move to Thailand, and it doesn't matter what you guys say, I'm gonna do it."
And then how did you feel at that moment? Did you think I was serious? Like, what was going on in your mind?
It was bad. It was it was one of those moments where you think that, oh my God, my little cousin's is making a life decision just because he came here over with two of his cousins. And actually, in our first instinct is how I'm gonna explain to Johnny's parents if they find out that he actually decided because we went on a trip together. But that was afterwards. What the other thing that concerned us the most is how he's gonna make a living here. He doesn't speak Thai. He has never been in this country before. Once, he probably read it on the internet, which I doubted he did at that time. It's just a fun trip, among cousins, and of course, if he wants to do something, we know that he has he's capable, to finish it. However, it's just there's too many uncertainty involved, and we, as a cousin, of course, want to give our honest opinion, which we didn't think was a good idea at that time.
So I want to give a shout out to two people. First is Larry, which is the other cousin that They came out here with us. And actually, Larry just came to visit about a month ago, and we went diving at the Similan Islands together. We did that liveaboard. So if you want to check the blog, there's a video and a write-up about it, which is basically diving on a cruise boat, almost like a diving specific boat, where they take you out and you live on the boat and you sleep on the boat, and there's a cook on there that cooks for you, and it's one of the best ways to go diving if you have 3 or 4 days to just dedicate to it. So what's up, Larry, if you're listening? And the other person, who I don't know and I never met, but was the biggest inspiration for me to make that move, was Tim Ferriss. With the 4-Hour Workweek, if you guys haven't read it, it's really the manifesto. You kind of everyone listening to this and wanting to live this lifestyle really has to read it, because he was the only person I've ever heard talk about doing this as a possibility. And obviously he has those slightly different circumstances from everyone else. He had a company already. He's a very smart guy, but it was because of his book and what he had laid out in it that I was thinking, you know what? I have a guide. It's possible. Unfortunately, there was nobody else talking about it, specifically moving to Thailand, specifically doing the things I wanted to do, which was quit my job and become a dive master and start taking people out, scuba diving and being a professional at it. Nobody talked about doing Muay Thai as a Westerner, as a living. And here's the crazy thing is plenty of people do. There's actually a lot now, more and more, but even when I started, there was people doing it, but nobody was sharing the experience. Nobody was talking about it. There was no podcasts about it. I couldn't even find any blogs about it. And that's why I had started my first Muay Thai blog, my Fight Camp, which I don't update too often anymore, but tons of people actually still find it when they are looking to do Muay Thai in Thailand. And that's why I wrote my first book, 12 Weeks in Thailand. Do you remember when I first came out with that book and you read it, and did it kind of relive that first initial trip and explain a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a person have never experienced that before, the book itself would give a clear guidance how it really felt, because I think that's how Johnny really felt when he went through the trip, and all that's are life-like experiences. And I think by reading that book gives just that so much little more confidence to do things that you want to do. And especially if you come to Thailand, that's something that you need to know.
So if you guys haven't read the book, you can find it on Amazon or at 12weeksinthailand.com. And it was kind of my savior in the beginning, because I had decided I was done taking people scuba diving. It was one of those things where I loved doing for a year or two, and then my passion for it slowly diminished, and it started fading just because it became a chore. It's like, imagine you love driving cars, you love racing cars. Let's say you love racing motorbikes like Jacob does. He's an avid motorcycle racer, but now your job is to take people on the safety course and the beginner's course every day, and you never get to ride faster than 20 miles an hour. it makes it a little bit boring for you after a while, a little bit stressful. So that's the reason why I wrote the book, is because I really wanted to share the story with everyone, but at the same time I needed to make money, and I had no idea how else to make money while traveling in Thailand and do the things I loved, besides trading my time for money and having a very low paid job. I mean, I made enough to live in Thailand, but if you calculate it back to US dollars, it was way less than minimum wage. I would be happy to make $600 a month, which is just enough to get by, and live a good life on the cheap, but not a great life. And that's what the whole book was about, was teaching people and showing people how they can live the good life on the cheap, enjoy a stress-free life, do what they love to do, make just enough money to get by, not worry about having the job back home. But after writing that book, I realized, wow, you could actually make money doing other things online too. Obviously I could write another book, which I did, or I could start a podcast and have sponsors and advertisements, or I could start an online business like I've done. When I first came, I think for 4 or 5 years, I was broke. I mean, did you guys know how broke I was? And When I started making money, did you even realize what was going on?
Um, I I think I know the story about uh, you were struggling. There's certain times that I mean, we would think that you would have give up by then because you know anybody who has a great job back in states in a very reputable American company sell his two cars, get rid of his apartments, sell all his belongings, and all of a sudden move back to Thailand 2 weeks after he came back, uh, and he's going back to Thailand again. So we, as a cousin, we did not expect you to stay as long as you did. We were thinking that something like that happened, maybe you could be back in 6 months. So if you really insist to come back, we'll let you try. As a family, we'll support you, of course. However, it is your decision because you're gonna be end up the one that's taking up the responsibility. So, but no, with that said, I think we know how tough it is for you to come here without knowing anybody. There's no single person that you know when before you come over, and to actually find a job and survive without saying a word of Thai. I can assume that you went through some tough time.
But our family did that, you know, 40 years ago when they moved from Taiwan to the U.S. for the first time, and they didn't speak any English. They didn't have any money. Like I remember my parents had everything that they owned in a few suitcases, and they had some cash. I think they had $2,000 in cash, which then was actually quite a bit of money. But to move to a whole new country and have a baby girl, which was my older sister, I wasn't born yet. And I remember them saying that they even brought blankets because they knew how expensive they were. And even though it was heavy to bring, they knew that they could not afford to buy, new bedding or new blankets when they got here. And they had moved here and stayed with my uncle, our fourth uncle, Alvin's dad. And if they had been through that struggle, I almost feel like it's in our DNA, our blood, to be able to struggle as well and say, you know what? Like maybe sometimes the place we're born, the life we're born into, the things we're handed, the things we're supposed to do, the job that we get, maybe it's not our only option. Maybe if we really want something, we can get something else. And you're the same. You immigrated from Taiwan. Tell us about that and how is there any similarities between that and what I did?
Yeah, I guess I can say that it's quite close. I immigrated here when I was 19, so I had a chance to explore a new, different area, sort of similar like what you did. But I do have my mom that comes over with me at the same time. So in a way, I had it a little easier than you are. But I'm sure in some ways it's similar because I don't really speak that much English to begin with. And the struggles that you're going through to go into a new different country. I remember trying to order something to eat. That's if I go to McDonald's. Back then there's no picture menu. It's all in words. You really literally have to read out the words. And I remember it was a hard time for me to order any food. So I have to kind of point my food and there's some other random guys standing by my table. Then since I've been eating the same thing for past 2-3 months, and I kind of just ask him if I can switch with him, and he was kind of enough to switch with me. So that was a memory. I remember how hard it was at that time, I think for that part, in a way, I guess you could say it's kind of in our family blood to start off something and then build on it. The experience that I have of moving to a new country are quite challenging to begin with. However, I guess the fun part is, by the end of the day, you make it through another day. and that's always so much more rewarding. And I think one of the reasons I decided to move from Taiwan to America is I wasn't happy, what I was doing. I wasn't satisfied. I felt like I can do more. And also, I always intrigued somewhat about the Western culture, and I want to see it for myself rather than have somebody else tell me what it's like. So, in that regards, I think we're quite similar.
I actually never really thought about this until we've been sitting here in the car. So I'm glad we're doing this interview. I mean, we spent the last 2 weeks together traveling around, and Jacob is one of my best friends. Even though he's my cousin, he's one of my best friends. And we live back in LA. We partied it up every weekend. I would drive to his house. I was living in Orange County, and I would sleep on his mattress on the floor with his roommate David. So what's up, David? And it was such a good time, and it's crazy how our lives are now kind of crossed again, even though I'm living on the other side of the world, and how much our lives are similar in this sense. We're, for different reasons, and to different countries. I'm also basically an immigrant. I've also wanted something different, something better, something to make me happier, and really so I can experience it for myself and not just watch it on TV, not just watch it on Discovery Channel. I mean, I wish you guys can see this on video. Unfortunately, this is just audio, but we are driving through here. I mean, just explain to everyone what we see that is, to me, is normal now because I see it all the time. But what is it like as someone who lives in Los Angeles to even drive through where we are?
This is not normal. I'm actually seeing a lot of, I think it's cows. I am looking at the mountains that looks like a rainforest, and it's very different than the scenery back to LA. And I feel like in fact, I'm going to airport, but this makes me feel like I'm going on an adventure, going somewhere. And I'm actually talking to Johnny on the here, and even makes it different to put it into reality. So,
yeah, I agree, and I think every day here is kind of a weird adventure, and I've gotten so used to it where when things, for example, we were on the ferry yesterday from Koh Phi Phi, where we spent the last 5 days to Phuket so we can fly out, and they actually went the long way to show everyone the Maya Bay, which is where if you guys seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie The Beach, where that was filmed, and they were showing all these other sites, and the ferry is really cool. I was surprised how good it was because it was only 250 baht, which is about $8 US, and it's a 2-hour ferry ride, and they were providing fresh cut watermelon on the board. They were giving a tour of the place. I was very impressed with the level of service for that little amount of money. And I actually want to say that Koh Phi Phi, for whatever reason, even though it's a very small touristy island, is so well organized compared to a lot of other places in Thailand. Even compared to Koh Lanta or Koh Tao, this is the place built for tourists. Everything, and not necessarily in a bad way either. They just make everything very easy for tourists. But what I was gonna say is, I didn't even look out the window, because I had seen, these things so many times, and we had just saw it the other day intimately because we went diving there, that I didn't even bother looking out the window. And I'd imagine, and I remember you saying when we were on one of the beaches, and you were looking out at the sunset, and you were saying, in LA this would be $1 million view. Explain more about that.
Yeah. That scenery is still in my head, and actually took a photo of it, and that becomes my desktop background paper, and also on my iPhone. It's just something that you cannot really describe in words. You have to really be there and then put everything besides you, and then just enjoying what's in front of you, and then that you can really have an open mind to see what you haven't been seeing. what's out of your ordinary life that you normally don't see. And I don't know, when you do step out your comfort zone, you go out, start traveling, start going to different places, and you find that little niche in your head. You go, oh man, I wish I would know this. I would have come more. I would have definitely come over and just to see different things. And it just so happened I was on the beach and wasn't doing anything special, just normal things. That's something I would do in LA. I bring my blanket, my tower, not blanket, my tower. I bring a bottle of water and just very quickly walk to the beach and then want to get some tent, just relax, before the ferry. And I was sitting there, I was looking out, just between the two mountains, and I see the sunset. The way it is, it was displayed. It's just different. It's almost like telling me, this is life. This is, the way the sun shines, the way waters, the ocean, waves, everything. The whole big picture. It makes you feel like you're part of it, and then that's life. And it was just so vivid. So, if I would stay in LA, I would never be able to see it. And I'm also amazed the fact that people who live in the island can enjoy that thing on a daily basis, and they're just so rich with the life. They don't really need fancy televisions. They don't need Ferrari sports car. They have the basic needs in their life. And let me say this: if I'm in LA and I see people has a lot of money, and a lot of people aren't really happy. If you really know them, you talk to them, and they are always worried about something, or they always not content with their life. They want more, or they're just not satisfied, or they have problems from here and there. But going through different regions, meet different people, saw the sunset, and talk to locals, and just see the smile on their face. Every day when I wake up in the morning, we wake up at 6, we wake up at 7 early in the morning, and you talk to them. They, once you talk to them, you feel, they're content, and they don't really need that much in life to be happy. So that's one of the soul searching, I guess, that I have discovered along the trip.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because really, okay. Here's the thing about LA is we are so super close to the beach. Wherever you're in LA, you're less than an hour from Santa Monica, from Venice Beach, these beautiful places. But no one goes there. It's such a crazy, crazy thing. Living in California, we have access to beautiful mountains to go hiking, to go skiing or snowboarding, to surf, to go to the beach and just relax and chill out. But people, if you tell someone to actually show you on a calendar the amount of times they go to either of those things in a year, it's usually less than 2. And in their mind, they're like, oh yeah, we go all the time. But you're like, okay, well, show me on a calendar when the last time you actually went. And it was 6 months ago. It's even though it's so close that you can technically go every day if you wanted to. The reason why they don't is they're busy. Everyone's so busy all the time, and they're busy commuting to work and from work because there's traffic. I know some people who drive half an hour. Some people drive 2 hours to work because it's too expensive to live in LA. So you live in San Bernardino, which is an hour east, and then there's traffic, so now it's 2 hours. And you're sitting in a car, back and forth 4 hours a day. You don't have time to go to the beach. On the weekends, you have responsibilities. You will have, laundry to do. You have things to do, and people just can't afford it. I mean, I remember people talking about, doing a beach holiday, and they were planning it for like 5 months. And I'm like, why don't you just go next weekend? It's not even far. It wasn't a far drive. It was like a 2 hour drive. And it's because people are so busy that they have to plan things super, super far in advance. And the worst part of it is because people are so stressed, every Friday and Saturday night, people want to get rid of some of the stress. So what do?
they stay home.
or they party. They go out and drink, and they spend a ton of money. I mean, okay, so money-wise, even though we're on holiday, we're doing all this crazy stuff, how much money were you spending every day doing, eating, going out, doing all the things you like to do here, having drinks, versus what you would spend back home in LA?
Oh, that would be a number that you cannot do the same thing you do here. You want to do back in LA. It just the number just won't add up. You will have probably spend 4 or 5 times more, and then you probably don't even want to do that to begin with. So the cost for here, for staying, for food, I'm not talking about regular food where we eat good. Sometimes we order different kind of styles. We go to different type of restaurants. We actually enjoy eating out, and all those costs that's combined together, it's definitely making a lot more sense to spend money here than compared to back in LA.
Well, for example, it was Jacob's birthday the other day. Happy birthday! And for dinner, we had this place that's called Matt's Joint or something, just a barbecue restaurant on Phi Phi that served ribs, had like beef kebabs and some like different types of steak, things like that. It was all you can eat with a full salad bar, full pretty much whatever you wanted. And they even gave you a free cocktail or a beer. And normally, I don't drink much, but I figured it's Jacob's birthday. We're on Koh Phi Phi, this party island. I'm gonna have myself a lychee martini, and it was 380 baht or something, which is $12 US. And for $12, you can have food in back home, but nothing fancy. And you definitely can't have a lychee martini with it. That would be $12 on its own in Hollywood or Vegas or New York. And then the Thai food itself. So Phi Phi is actually way more expensive than Chiang Mai. And let's talk about Chiang Mai in a second, because we spent the first 4 nights there. But in Chiang Mai, you can get Thai food, let's say fried rice or pad Thai or something, for less than 60 baht, so less than $2, $1.50 or $2. Here it's double, it's almost $5. But for some reason, the food, I actually think, I don't want to say it's better, but the portions are definitely bigger and they're more westernized. So they kind of remind me of having Thai food back at home, which is kind of my palate. As much as I enjoy very authentic or spicy food, sometimes it's kind of nice just having almost American style Thai food. But what did you think of? Let's talk about Chiang Mai, what we did, how you liked it, and then let's talk about what we did in Koh Phi Phi.
Okay, Chiang Mai is something that I didn't know. It's a beautiful city. It's a very unique, and it has a lot of history behind it, because the first impression I have is I saw the gate that looks like it's probably from about 300 years ago, and they preserve it, but you can still see the river that's around the gate, and it's interesting to see that, because obviously they built a gate there for a reason, most likely for protections, and they also have a water river flow around it. So that was quite interesting to see it, and then to find out why did they do that. And another thing worth mention about Chiang Mai is the water quality. It's probably the best water quality I have ever tasted from any places I've been to, and I've been to many different cities. And any regular bottled water you buy from Chiang Mai will taste like $8 French crystal water that you got in LA. Okay, so that's a huge differences, and then it's a pure enjoyment just drinking the water from Chiang Mai. And also I think because the water qualities are so good in the city, and you can see the skin from male or female particularly of Chiang Mai girls, they almost have this, porcelain color, very white porcelain colors of skin colors. So, and I think the majority of the reason that's because of the water qualities are so good, and you just have to be there to see it.
So the thing about the water, at first when he kept talking about the water, he kept raving about it, and I was like, what are you talking about? It's bottled water, it's exactly the same in all of Thailand. And then he took a long shower, and he was like, man, the water here is so good. And I maybe I'm just used to it because I've been living here in that same condo for almost a year, and I was like, this is just water, you're crazy, let him enjoy it, whatever. We went to Koh Phi Phi, took a shower, and I was like, this water sucks. And I think on Phi Phi itself, it's because it's a small island and they have water problems. So it's almost like, I don't know how they actually get it. It's either collected rainwater or it's like desalinated seawater or a mixture. Actually, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the water on Koh Phi Phi is like a mixture of seawater and fresh water, or some kind of fresh water that you definitely would not want to drink 100%. But even the bottled water wasn't as good, and it's so weird because you would think it's exactly the same. The only thing I can think of is because they have to ship it in. It probably sits out on the sun somewhere, being trucked in from somewhere on that boat. But either way, now I'm a believer, and I actually remember taking showers back in California, where there's also drought problems. And we have really hard water, So after you take a shower, you still almost feel like it's hard to get the soap off. It's kind of, your hair is super dry. Your skin's dry. Yeah, your skin's itchy. Like, it's not it's such little things that I don't even think about anymore. I keep thinking of life back in the U.S. as like, oh yeah, everything was so great. Everything's so convenient. I can order whatever I want, online or with food delivery. Everyone speaks English. Everything is just so easy. But the more I think about it, I'm like, there was a lot of sacrifices living there as well. And even though there's a lot of nice things as well, I would say 100% my quality of life here is better. And it's a blessing that I can't buy stuff as easily and I have to travel with it. So I buy less stuff. So the goal, I really, really believe that financially, the best thing, one of the easiest and best things you can do is if you can figure out how to make a U.S. salary, if you can earn U.S. dollars while living in a place like Chiang Mai that's super cheap, that you can live for less than $1,000 a month, and just save that money, just, push it aside, put it in Wealthfront or Betterment, or buy, just put it in your checking account. Don't even do anything with it. You would be better off than 99% of people, or at least 90% of people back in the U.S., where they spend a ton of money. Like, talk about your living expenses, your rent, your bills you pay per month, and then we'll compare.
Okay, so I live in the 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the West Covina. Okay, so the rent I'm paying a month, that's around $14.50. That's US dollar, of course, and then the electricity is probably about 30 a month or 40. The gas is probably about 20. And also we pay water, trash in that apartment, so that's about an add on 50. Living expenses, I would say, without food, without any necessities, just basically living. For rent plus utility, I would say anywhere around about $1,600.
And so what is crazy is when Jacob asked me how much is gas or trash, I was like, oh, we don't have gas. We use electric here. So I'm sure that makes our electric more expensive. But then things like trash, I'm like, I forgot that people actually have to pay for that. I almost can't believe they charge people for that. And there's all these little things, like my cell phone bill a month is $9. And then back home, people pay $80 or $100 for, and it's so insane. You know, like I literally have completely forgotten. And then every single person back home has insurance on their phone too. And insurance is how much per month for like an iPhone? Like,
About $10.
so that's another, a couple $100 a year, right? Yeah. And nobody here, actually, I don't know, maybe people have insurance because it, maybe it makes sense because you're traveling with it. But we don't need insurance out here because you just buy the phone straight out. So it's not like required. If back home, if you break your phone and lose your phone, you still have 2 years on the contract, even if you don't have a phone. So you have to go out and get the phone. You can't get it subsidized. I really, really think that there's so many like hidden costs of living back in the U.S. that I completely have forgotten about, ignored, and I'm sure a big one would be gas. I mean, like how much money do people spend on gas per week or per month now?
Gasoline, it's definitely one of the places that you spend a lot of money at. Probably one tank of gas costs about, anyway, depends how big the car is, what type of car you drive, but I would say anywhere between $50 to $80.
Which is insane. And I used to pay that. And I remember I had a big sedan that would cost, and I had to use premium gas. That was $80 a week. Now I spend way less than $80 a month on taxis and transportation. And then my motorbike, which I drive around, a little scooter that I drive around Chiang Mai, I spend $3 a week maximum on gas. And these things add up so much. And with that extra money that we save, we can fly down to places like Koh Phi Phi for way less than $100 and enjoy diving, and enjoy the island, enjoy all this crazy stuff. Okay, so let's get back to what we actually did. What did we do in Chiang Mai?
First of all, I'm a realtor, so I need a suit, and I think in Thailand it's actually a great place to get your suitmate because everything is customized to your own specifications. So Johnny's nice enough to introduce me to one of his guys that he regularly use, and the guy is also somewhat famous, I think, in local community. So I was lucky enough to get to meet him and get my suitmate in Chiang Mai. And it was quite an experience, to have someone major for you, and something like that. I think back in U.S. will probably cost anywhere from $800 to $2,000 for a tailor-made suit. And in Chiang Mai, I think I spent a little bit more than $200 USD to $300 USD within the range. So that was a good investment on that part.
What about the hiking?
And then we also went on a 2-day hiking. They call it tracking here. Basically, there's about 4 of us. The experience is pretty cool because they come pick us up in the a Thai truck, and it was designed to fit the passenger there, and it was quite fun to be in one of those because in that area you're forced to talk to people that comes to do this activity. So with a short amount of time, we actually become pretty good talking buddies, and so before we get on the trip, we gotta drive about an hour to an hour and a half to get to that place. So during that time, we all from different countries. We just kind of share, ask people questions, kind of share our experiences and where we're going, where we come from. And after an hour and a half later, we finally got to the place, and we then started seeing the elephants, and it was cool because those elephants are not what it seems on TV. They are quite large, and the trainer started teaching us how to get closer to it and start feeding them food, give them bananas, and they're very, very gentle creatures. Despite the fact how heavy humongous they are in size. They're quite friendly. So we were able to sit on the elephant, and I think I feel like it's about maybe two-story high, and just by sitting on top of the elephant makes it very interesting. And then we were walking with the elephant along the way, and the trainer was guiding the elephant to go from point A to point B, and we were going through grass, and then we went through rivers, and then we went up and down, on the field. So that's pretty cool. That's really a good experience. Just to do the tracking.
Yeah. So honestly, I've been on tons of treks. I really enjoy it, and I always opt for the walking only treks because I don't want to ride the elephants. I don't want to do the whitewater rafting, the bamboo rafting. And what's funny is the walking only treks are actually more expensive than the normal one that includes all the stuff. And I think it's because it's usually a smaller group, and because you're hiking for longer, so it's more work for the guide. But this time, because I was like, you know what? My cousin's a tourist. It'd be cool for him to see these things. Let's just do the basic touristy trek. And in my mind, I was like, all right, when I get to the elephant place, right, the elephant camp, if the elephants look like they're not well treated, or they look like they're malnourished, then I'm not going to ride it. But it was fine. It's honestly one of those things where ideally there would be enough land and resources that elephants could just roam wild all over Thailand like they did 100 years ago or 200 years ago. But unfortunately, that's really just not the case, and there's a lot of things that I don't believe in, like, they definitely shouldn't be on the street begging. I've seen that sometimes. We walk around concrete, in the middle of the night, there's loud parties and taking photos with tourists. But in these places, it's really not the best environment by far. But there are far bigger things in the world to worry about than tourists riding elephants. And unfortunately, if we want to spend our time and energy fixing things, we need to get to the root of humanity's problems. And on the big picture, taking photos with tigers or riding elephants is a pretty small compared to the craziness that's going on in the rest of the world. Not only to do with animals, but with humans and all that as well. Anyways, that's beyond the scope of this show, so I don't want to talk too much about it. And it's one of those things where I've learned to kind of say, what, let me not get involved in things that I'm not going to, control. If I'm going to do something about it, if I'm going to donate my time or my money or my energy to fixing it, I'll talk about it. If I'm not willing to do those things, I'm not even going to talk about it, because that doesn't help anyone. So, and try to, when you come here, just be socially responsible. Use your own judgment and say, is this something I want to do? Is this something that, as a tourist, I can enjoy and have fun? Or is this really something I need to avoid? With diving, overall, I actually honestly think that even though there are, people that will step on coral, kind of, mess things up, overall, it actually raises awareness. Every time people dive, they see what's going on down there. They see, and especially if people dive for over a couple years, they see the coral slowly getting worse, and they realize, maybe we should do something about it. So I actually think all these things are kind of raising awareness. So we are pulling up to the airport right now. It's been very fun, Jacob. Yep. Thank you everyone for joining us on this trip.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for coming to visit me. It's been fun. If you guys want to know the whole story, read the book 12 Weeks in Thailand, or follow my blog, johnnyfd.com. If you guys need to buy or sell a house in Los Angeles, contact me and I'll put you in touch with Jacob. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.